Section 9 of the American Postal Service, 2nd edition. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Matt Williams, Pleasant Valley, New York. Chapter 4, Part 4, Special Articles. Mr. Wanamaker's 4 Great Postal Reforms. Marshall Cushing, private secretary to Postmaster General Wanamaker, says in his book The Story of Our Post Office, published some years ago, that Mr. Wanamaker had in mind and frequently discussed with public men 4 great postal propositions, one of which this administration is now vigorously pushing forward, while the other 3 are still in abeyance. These propositions were the postal telegraph, the postal telephone, rural free delivery, and house-to-house collections of mail. He regarded them as simple and easy business propositions. The first proposed that the thousands of letter carriers of the department should help the telegraph companies collect and deliver messages, and that a few clerks in a central bureau in Washington could manage the stamp department and do the bookkeeping for this part of the business of the companies. Telegrams were to be written on stamped paper sold by the department, or upon any sort of paper provided with stamps sold by the department, and be deposited, as in the case of letters, whether on the streets or attached for collection and delivery purposes at house doors. These postal telegrams were to be collected by carriers on their regular tours of collection and telegraphed to the destinations and taken out and delivered in the first delivery. Answer to be sent off exactly in the same way. Telegraphic business was thus to be cheapened to the public because of the lessened cost to the companies by this government aid, commonly estimated at about 1/3 of their whole operating expenses. The gain to the government would be not only the 2 cents for postage rates proposed for telegrams under this scheme, but also the impetus given by general correspondence. The gain to the companies would be the additional patronage which lower rates and regular collection and delivery would give, also the saving of this expense and the office use, clerk, hire, etc., and other expenses incidental thereto. This scheme was in no wise to interfere with the use of the quicker form of telegraphing for those who preferred it. It was simply intended to bring together in concerted action the 2 great machines for conveying intelligence, the telegraph plant of the companies and the free delivery operating forces of the department. This, in brief, was his idea, but much more extensively elaborated in further supporting arguments in its favor, and in meeting objections where doubts of its practicability might be supposed to exist. This proposition has been widely mentioned, has had many advocates, and it is interesting to note in this connection that Postmaster General Burleson entertains a somewhat similar idea, and has in 3 annual reports to Congress urged the matter, however with this difference. Wanamaker's plan did not contemplate taking over the telegraph companies, simply entering into a mutual business arrangement with them, while Postmaster General Burleson goes a step farther by the incorporation of the telephone and telegraph into the postal establishment. The opposition to the postal telegraph was as strong then as now, its constitutionality being questioned by those who oppose it. Mr. Wanamaker held that the powers granted to Congress by the Constitution were not merely confined to the facilities known at the time, but were to keep pace with the progress of the country, and Mr. Burleson says operation of these facilities inherently as well as constitutionally belong to the Postal Service. Both are thus in accord, differing only in method. The question is one of interest, and its future development will be watched with considerable concern by all who wish to see further progress in this direction. As the second of Mr. Wanamaker's propositions, the postal telephone, with its tremendous opportunities and possibilities, especially in connection with rural delivery and parcel post advantages, the magnitude and success of which even the enthusiastic and optimistic Pennsylvanian did not then foresee, is bound up in General Burleson's plan, and the third, the rural free delivery, is making such strides towards countrywide extension that it is only a matter of time when it may be brought near. The fourth of Mr. Wanamaker's propositions remains only to be mentioned. This is the use of letter boxes for the collection as well as the delivery of mail from and to everybody's door in every city, town, village, and farming community of the country. This means such an immense convenience to everybody that he does not argue the case, but simply points out its admitted advantages as a sufficient reason for its early adoption. A disc at the door box when mail was to be collected would summon the carrier on his daily rounds, even if no mail was to be delivered. Trips to the letter box on the corner would then be no longer necessary, and the ease and certainty of which collection would be made would, in Mr. Wanamaker's opinion, give an impulse to letter writing and increase the public revenue to a very considerable extent. It would mean two great conveniences to the family: the safe delivery of letters at their door, and the equally safe collection of mail therefrom. Of course, to obtain this service, letter boxes would have to be provided by the householders, but Mr. Wanamaker believed that this complete accommodation would induce people to go to that trifling expense in order to gain such an evident advantage. It was tried in St. Louis in his time, and worked exceedingly well. Postmaster General Wanamaker was an official with a far-seeing vision and actively alive to all postal possibilities, and the present Postmaster General is fully abreast of him in every form of public enterprise, which makes for the utmost in postal accomplishment. See page 83 for Postmaster General Burleson's views regarding postal telegraphs and telephones. The rural carrier as a weatherman. It is said that the most common topic among mankind everywhere is the weather. It follows nearly every greeting and salutation, introduces conversation, is always a subject of interest, and affords opportunities of discussion upon which people can agree and disagree without exciting the least disturbance whatever. It has so much to do with the temper, the disposition, the pleasures, and the material affairs of life that its compelling interest is admitted, and the winds and clouds are ever objects of our daily attention. The government recognizes this fact, and has brought scientific knowledge to bear upon the subject for the benefit of the man who tills the soil, for the mariner upon the sea, and they who dwell in the cities, and for whom wind and weather has also its peculiar interest and concern. Weather maps are common in the crowded cities and commercial centers, but are not as convenient of access in the country districts, and aside from the reports in the morning papers, the farmer has no particular way of acquainting himself with the provision the government has made in this respect. It has been suggested that an easy and simple way of interesting and informing the rural residents of a daily weather forecast would be for the carriers on rural routes who can obtain this information to make it known by means of little flags attached to their vehicles, for example, a white flag when the weather will be clear, a red flag when rain is indicated, a yellow flag for snow, and a blue flag when a cold wave is coming. This would be a daily guide, a matter of but little trouble to the carrier, and give his daily visits an additional interest to all the patrons whom he serves. New box numbering system for rural routes. In the cities of the country, the streets are named and the houses are numbered by the authorities. The department uses these numbers and street names in its mail deliveries. A letter to be properly addressed to a person or a firm needs only the number of the house or building and the name of the street. This method is very simple, and the mail is speedily and successfully handled. In the country districts, there are 4 systems in use by the department: the railroads, and the express companies. The first system is where patrons erect boxes at their places of residence for the collection and delivery of mail. The letter or parcel is simply addressed to the post office, to the patron, and the rural route is given. The second is where a letter or parcel is addressed to the patron at a post office, with the number of the route, the box number, the side of the road, and the miles from the office being embodied in the box number. The third is where a letter or parcel is addressed to a patron at a post office giving the route number and the number of the patron's box. The fourth system is where mail is addressed to the patron at an office giving the section and township where the patron lives. The latter system is used by the railroads relative to freight and express matter, and definitely locates a person in any part of the United States. The addition of the rural route number and box makes the most complete designation possible. There has been an ingenious plan suggested, if it can be practically employed, a newer and more complete method of numbering the boxes along rural delivery routes, indicating and locating the patrons thereon, which will identify the patron with his place of residence, simplify assorting, and afford in many ways advantages not offered or included in the old method. The suggested new method. The diagram on the following page, which is intended to illustrate the suggested new plan, shows that in any given 3 numbers, such as 111, the first figure at the left would be the route number, the second figure, the number of the box, the third, the distance from the supplying office. Explanation. The first figure, as indicated, denotes the rural route number, the second figure denotes the box and its location on the mile, the third or more figures denotes the miles from the supplying post office. Each mile is divided into 4 quarters for box designation. Those on the right have the odd figures, 1, 3, 5, 7, and those on the left even figures, 2, 4, 6, and 8. If there is more than one box in a quarter, the other boxes are given the first box number in that quarter, with the addition of a small letter, A, B, C, D, etc., after the mile figure or figures. The patron, if he lived at the first quarter of a mile, would be addressed John Williams, Rayville, Illinois, Rural Delivery 111. This would show that John Williams lives on rural route number 1 at the first quarter mile on the delivery part of the route, and that it is the first box on the first mile. If he lived on the second mile, at the third quarter, he would be addressed Rural Delivery 152, and his box would be so numbered. If he lived on the second mile, at the second quarter, and on the left-hand side of the road, his box number would be 142. Where automobile routes are established, a capital letter can be used instead of the first figure. If it is desired, the section number can be used instead of the miles figure or figures, and would then show where the patron lived in the township. It is understood that the department has under consideration the question of locating the boxes on the right-hand side of the road for the convenience of the carrier. The above system can be used whether all the boxes are located on the right side of the road or not. The question of entirely abandoning the practice of numbering boxes is also being considered, and if adopted, this suggested method of additional identification would of course be useless. It is simply mentioned here as an idea to aid in readily assorting mail in the office, and as a more complete method of identification than under the present system. If the department decides that the name of the owner on the box is sufficient, this suggested new plan has no further value, and can be regarded as one of the many novel ideas in connection with the rural service which come up from time to time. It may, however, be said that a box once located and numbered always retains its identity, and no matter how many persons live at or move to or from that locality, the box number retains its identity, the same as a house number retains its identity in a city. End of section 9.